Welcome, everyone, to the Meaningful Hearts podcast, where we discuss the everyday questions that make us or break us if we let them. With your hosts, Drew and Daniella. Take our hands and let's walk this journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Meaningful Hearts podcast. And today, we're back. Both of us are on. Daniella came out of her hiatus, and she's
I wasn't on hiatus.
She was on sabbatical.
Neither. We were just
Okay.
alternating.
We're alternating. We were just trying to see who had a better podcast. Apparently, she won.
No, I don't think either of us did.
Today will be a fun one. Sure,
For me.
everyone. For Daniella this time. She's going to put me in a hot seat with questions from a therapist. Now, I love these because they're questions that only the question asker knows. And the other person does not. And it makes for a great conversation. So, Daniella, without further ado, fire away.
Okay, here we go. The first question is, what do you want others to remember you by?
Oh, boy. Well, first and foremost, the amount of protein shakes and grilled chicken that I've eaten in my life.
Yeah, you've had quite a number of those recently.
You know, it's interesting because I've had this thought of who would attend my funeral, who would be there. Like, obviously, you're not going to be there for your own funeral in the spiritual sense. I guess, you know, you'll be off doing whatever. But just the thought of who would show up, who would attend, and whose lives you've impacted along the way. Now, the question was, what do you want me to rephrase it again? Because I don't want to go off on a tangent and answer the wrong question.
What do you want others to remember you by? So, like, when somebody
Okay.
thinks of you,
Yes.
what would you want them to think when they do?
Okay. I would say that somebody who is kind and funny, as well as somebody who, I guess, has a lot to say, good things.
Blabbermouth.
Blabbermouth. Well, it's kind of a tough one because I guess the people just look at me as like, wow, that guy was something. Yeah, he was a very interesting character in a lot of great ways. A lot of helpful information, very insightful. I'm not really sure. That's a loaded one because
They're
more
all
about
loaded.
it's more about me, right? And
Yeah, that's the point. I think it's a good question to think about because so many of us, without even realizing it, sometimes we really do care about what other people think about us. But we do so more in a way of like, we worry. You know, what is this person thinking of me? You actually mentioned some of that in the last episode. And it's just interesting how we think about or we worry about what other people think of us. So I think it's important that if that's where our mind goes now, what would it be like when you're not here anymore? You know, what would you want to be remembered by?
I mean, I guess it's hard looking at myself, right? And I guess wondering like I guess I'm known for my abilities, things that I was able to do to help others, or things that I've done for you. I'd say it's different because depending on the relationships I've had in my life and the people I've impacted, if I have impacted anyone, I might be remembered for many different things. As we evolve in our lives and the people that we meet, we kind of take different forms. You know, at one point in my life, maybe I was a lot more fun and a little more carefree and maybe a little wild, and that was the person they remember. And then as I evolved, I became a little bit more of a chill person that was just more into like doing a little more tame things that were a little more counter what my former self would have been. And I inspired in that life and so on and so forth. So it's kind of hard because I've met so many people along the way, and I've grown and evolved so much. And the people that remember me at one point in my life probably don't know this version of me now. So
So
could
pretty
be
much you're all over the place.
pretty much I'm an evolving Pokemon.
Well, I guess in the current state of where you are now.
So you're saying I'm going to die now?
I knew that's where you were going to say. I knew that's
I
where
don't
you were
want to
going to
die
go.
now.
I guess
The question is, if I were to leave this earth now, what would you want
I
people
mean,
to
it
remember
could
me
be,
by?
but I don't know. I guess not so much if you were to leave now, but just based on where you currently are in your growth. You know, as you continue to grow, what's something that you'd want to be remembered by? Like, I know for me, one of the things that I'd want to be remembered by is for being wise, for knowing, or being an old soul. I think those are two things that, as I get older, they've become more valuable to me. I really value being wise and being an old soul because of the way that I can connect with people.
I would say that's something that's.
You can't take my answer.
No, but if you look into my friends' phones, it's Drew Wise. So technically, I mean, that is. I guess that is something that I am known for, is being wise. Obviously, it's better coming from you because you're younger. So being wiser at a younger age and being more, I guess, noble and more connected with people, I think is more admirable than me being this old fool at 40. But
Yeah, but I think I heard some of that in your first response. You said you'd, which I can also relate to the kind part, because kindness is one of my own values in my own life. My philosophy is that the world is already a terrible place. I don't need to add more to it. And I think being remembered by those things would mean a lot. So one of the first few things that you said was also kind. You also said funny, that you have a lot to say, and that you're insightful. But ultimately, it's a good question to reflect on because, again, so many of us spend our time worrying or caring a lot about what other people think of us. But I don't necessarily know if enough of us take some time to reflect and really think about, like, how do you want to be remembered? What kind of impact, what kind of footprint do you want to leave behind? Whether that's people that know you or whether that's people that have heard of you. So it's a good question.
yeah,
I think answered it to the best of your abilities right now.
thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add, or do you want to move on to my next loaded
No, let's move on to
question?
the next loaded question.
Okay.
It's got the bacon, it's got the cheese, it's got the sour cream. It's all loaded up.
All right. So the next question is, what does unconditional love look like to you?
I think loving somebody for their flaws, loving them for the things that are hard for them to change or things that they're working on changing, and loving them for what they are. Obviously, it's not an excuse for being toxic or being a jerk, but I think that knowing and loving somebody in their rawest form,
Yeah.
I think is a good way to show unconditional love. Even if you have to push somebody away or move away from somebody and love them from a distance, I also think that is a sign of unconditional love, because sometimes we love we love for selfish reasons, as opposed to like loving them in the way that you have to help them, guide them in another direction so that they could be the best version of themselves. And that doesn't include you in their life. That's another form of unconditional love, because I think that sometimes we're not right for the person, and we're not good for that person, and we need to push them forward.
What does unconditional love look like for you in our relationship?
You're not going anywhere. No. I think the same thing. I think we look at we don't look at the most. Listen, loving the most amazing parts of you is easy. That's the easy part. Knowing you as a person and where you're flawed and where you're working on yourself, and seeing that growth and loving that person is ultimately what makes me fall in love with you. Is knowing that you're not perfect in the way that everybody wants to deem is perfect. Knowing that you have flaws and admitting to them, and working on them. I think that to me is that to me is unconditional love. Even when you're at your worst, I love you even more.
Okay. To further continue, what about in a parent-child relationship? What does unconditional love look like there for you?
Loving your child no matter what happens. That's really, even when they're the most hated person on the planet, things that they could do that are, maybe it's unforgivable, you're still going to love your child. And
okay, but how?
I wouldn't say that be an enabler. I think that's where it gets it gets twisted up, right? Parents, they don't like what their child has become, but they become part of the problem, and they enable their children to be worse. I think that doing what's necessary to protect your child, even if it's against their own decisions, I think that's also a part of love. Or reprimanding them and doing what's necessary to give them the best life possible, but not doing it in a selfish way where, which I notice a lot of parents do, is they protect their kids so much that their kids cannot like live without them. And I think that's not loving your child. That's selfish. I think that doing the things that may hurt you the most to help your child be better, whatever that is, I think that's unconditional love. It's painful sometimes. It's not blissful. It's pain. It could be painful at times. Sending your kid away to a boarding school, or putting through a training or something where you don't get to see them as often, and maybe they're hurting inside because they want to see you, but you know that it's going to make them better in certain ways. I'm just giving examples, but that's painful. But at the same time, you want your child to be the best, and you want them to have all the opportunities, have all the doors open for them, and have the ability, cognitive abilities, to function in a world that is, like you said, is very damaged and is very ugly. Need to give them all the weapons and skills that they can to survive and be tactful.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do something right now.
What?
I want to challenge you to close your eyes for a minute.
Okay. My eyes are closed.
I know, I can see them. I'm looking at them. And I want you to take a big, deep breath.
This isn't a question.
I know it's not a question, but I want you to take a deep breath anyway. And then I want you to hold it for a little bit. And then I want you to release. And then I want you to do it again. Okay. You can open your eyes. Thanks for doing that. The reason why I had to do that is the same reason why I do it to some of the people that I work with, is because sometimes when I ask questions, especially deep reflective questions, people want, and this is something that happened with you too, you want to come up with an answer right away, which is not a bad thing. I'm putting you on the spot. We're recording an episode, so it's understandable. I can get why you would want to come up with an answer. But sometimes slowing down a little bit, especially with the next question that I'm going to ask, it's not a loaded question. It's actually what I think is a fun question. But your answers might be a little bit different when you've had a little bit of time. So I thank you for doing that. It wasn't, done maliciously. I hope you know that.
So you're saying my answers were trash?
No. But I am saying that with both questions, you wanted to have I want to have an answer now, which is understandable because, again, we are recording. We're having answers. We need to have the answers. But at the same time, sometimes even though we are recording, it's still okay to take a minute to really think about what it is that you're trying to answer. Because as you were answering, I was also thinking about, like, what's the answer for me? What does unconditional love look like for me? And mine was a little bit more, I guess, a little more simplistic in the sense of, like, well, unconditional love means love that knows no conditions, or that has no conditions. But even that can be very vague. And I think I would have to take some time to really think about it. And that's also why I asked about, like, the different types of unconditional love, because the way that we love a partner might be different than the way that you love a parent, and vice versa.
Of course.
Right. So,
Sure.
yeah. But thanks for doing that. Now, my last question. And I encourage you to do the little breathing thing that I just did. I'm waving a little wand in the air. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You don't look ready.
I'm waiting for the question.
Okay. So the question is, what do you love about life?
Jeez.
Come on, that's not that loaded. That's fun.
That's a loaded question.
How is that a loaded question?
Because, I mean,
oh man, I just got the loaded questions today. I guess.
I struggle with enjoying life sometimes, right? I love parts of my life unconditionally, I would say, to a point where I'm just so grateful. I love the life that we're starting to build together. I love you. I love having you in my life. That's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I appreciate the very few friends that I have shared many moments with in my life, and I continue to grow with, and they continue to challenge me as well. And you continue to challenge me also, which is great. I say those are the high points of my life. Those are things I love. Those are things I find joy in, and the excitement for the future in experiences, fun experiences, and seeing parts of the world, and overcoming, I guess, some of my fears and some of the things that I'm working through, my anxieties, and seeing a better life ahead. I love that life can give me that, as well as I would say another thing is being in the best shape of my life and being fit and continuing to go on that journey. Those are things I really, really do love about my life at this current moment.
Well, thanks for answering so honestly. I appreciate the vulnerability. And I think I also continue to challenge you, and I guess expanding what you love about life. Just I challenge the people that I work with, and I think just anybody, especially because I know that we struggle to figure out what we love about life sometimes. Again, for me, my answers, they differ in some aspects. Like, one of the things that I love about life, and I'm actually a little surprised that you didn't say this, because you and I share this. I love the rain. I love.
Oh, I mean, I could sit here and go off a laundry list of things. There's so many things I probably haven't even thought of. I could,
Right, which is exactly why it's so important to allow ourselves to expand and kind of have the creativity to answer the question. It's not just people, but it's just aspects of life that so many of us forget that are there. I love the ability to be able to walk out, even though I really don't like summer, feeling the sun, right? It's like simple things like that. I love the feeling when I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I do is drink my lemon water. Like, I love that taste. I love to be able to do those things. Of course, I love being with you, and I love you, and I love my family and my friends as well. I love my job. I love what I do. But loving life is not just about the people. It's also about little things. Like, I know you love the coffee from the bakery near my house. That's a part of life that you really do. Like, I can see it when you're sitting and you're like sipping it. Like, you take that first sip and you're like, oh my God, that's so good. Right? It's little things like that as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a laundry list of things. I just, like I said, we're recording and it's a little bit later. So I'm just trying to get the highlights of things that are most important to me.
Yes, I understand. But that's why I appreciate you being, I guess, being willing to sit in the hot seat, because you don't know what the questions you're getting, so you can't prepare for them. So whatever happens out of that is very real. It's very raw. And me challenging you on certain things sometimes is uncomfortable. It isn't easy. Um, I guess I would like to hear a little based on not rather, but other than the few examples that I just gave, what are some other things that you love about life, so that we can start to wrap it up?
I would say definitely. Well, you took the words out of my mouth with the rain. I guess the weather's nice. Enjoying the summer. Uh, Smelling the air by the beach. We get a chance to go there, or being able to go on trips like we went on last year, where we got to see the mountains and the wilderness. That was really incredible. I was breathtaking, honestly. Being able to see things that you just can't put into words, and they just take the breath out of your mouth, and it's not like somebody made those things. They're just there. And there's so much more where that came from. I think that's also too the excitement of discovery and seeing other places, and being in nature, and just touching the grass with your feet and feeling the wetness of the water and things like that. Seeing certain animals and just taking it all in. I think those are really awesome. Or even hearing the water down a stream. There's just so many things I could literally list. Those are just some of them that I've discovered in the past year or so that I was just blown away by, and wondering what more could be. I also like drawing. Drawing is very therapeutic for me. I don't get to do it all the time, but definitely something that I've got into in the most recent years of my life, and have developed a pretty good skill for. And sometimes I forget how amazing it is to do.
Yay! Thanks for sharing. I appreciate you answering all of these questions, and I definitely encourage listeners to answer these questions for themselves. And it's okay to struggle to answer the questions. It's okay to come back to them later on. So yeah, thanks for answering them, babe. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
And with that being said, I think it's a good way to wrap up I was going to say our session. Like I'm in the session.
Oh, okay. Now your true intentions come out.
Well, it kind of feels like that, right? Because these are the questions that I would ask somebody I'm working with. And that just kind of felt like the session just now.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.